Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Do you ever just like feel that your voice is gonna crack before it does? Like when you're like, I know when I open my mouth right now, my voice is going to crack. Does that ever happen to you?
Maybe.
Okay, because I definitely and like I also would normally in that occasion like clear my throat before saying something, but I can't start the podcast recording by clearing my throat. So I was like, I
You
just gotta
did forget
jump
to do
in.
your big clearing a throat before you hit record. You did
That's
forget.
true. That's true. I was in the zone. I was in the moment. I was ready to go. And yeah, I forgot to do my big throat clearing. And it's fall in Tennessee, so things are, a little
Ugh, it's
mucusy. It
horrible.
happens.
It's very mucusy, very sneezy.
Yeah. Poor Millie has had a very runny nose all day, and she's 2, so she doesn't understand how to blow her nose, despite me trying my very hardest to get her to
Hmm.
understand. And she's just like, no, no, this is terrible.
I'm not doing
Um,
that.
so that's why my voice sounded strange in the beginning. At least it did to me. I don't know if it did to anyone else. I felt like I had like a phone sex voice
Sounded
going
like
on.
I was about to say it sounded like you were trying to be like a sex operator.
Right. I'm like,
Hi,
I
I'm
wasn't
Jacqueline.
I wasn't trying to, but after I said it, I was like, that's kind of what it sounded like because I was trying to like lower my voice so that it didn't crack. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Without like whispering, because then that would be weird also. What if we
that would
just
be weird if
whispered for the entire
whispered the
podcast?
whole time. I couldn't do it. There's no way.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I kind of hate the sound of whispering sometimes. Like when someone's like I don't
Yeah,
know
it is
why.
kind
Like
of
it
like
bugs me. It's like,
nails on a
quit it.
chalkboardy. Yeah.
Yeah. Like just speak like a normal person.
Right? Like just say what you have to say. And what
Speaking of
I
say
have
what
to
you have
say
to
is nothing,
say.
apparently.
Well, I do have, I don't know if you remember this, but on Sunday we definitely had a story that we were going to tell the podcast. Do you not remember?
Oh, is this about the book?
Yeah. So me and Kevin go over to Jacqueline's
Oh
house
God.
to watch football, and I guess the podcast came up, and Jacqueline's like, "Yeah, I'm starting this book. It's about this architect. I don't know if you've heard of the book. It's called Devil in the White City." I was like, "The book about H. Holmes."
And I was like, no, no, it's not.
No, it's about an architect.
It's about an architect and a serial killer at the Chicago World's Fair that was not H.H. Holmes.
And then I pull up the the description of the book, and it's like, and H. Holmes. And I was like, sorry if I spoiled it for you, but it's in the
Literally
description.
in the description. I was only, I don't even know if I was a full chapter in by the time Courtney and I had this conversation, but I put it on hold a while ago, and I just don't know. Did I not read the description? Was that not in the description that I read for the? I have no
Mm-hmm.
idea, but I'm just like, no, I would have remembered if it was about H.H. Holmes. No, I would not have, apparently.
Oh god. So funny. But we have decided, since it is such a funny story, I do actually own the book. I got it from
Mhm.
McKay's. I had to peel the sticker off today to get a picture. I got it for $4 at McKay's. So shout out to our
Oh,
local
very
McKay's.
nice.
Um, and so we're gonna read the book together. Well, she's gonna listen,
Hmm.
I'm gonna read, and we can make notes about that too. But we're gonna do like a
Hmm.
little book club
Yes.
for November's Patreon, which is usually the last Thursday in November.
Hmm.
Well, every month. But so go ahead if you want to read it. It's an older book, so it's probably available at your library, or at least like a shorter hold, hopefully.
Yeah, mine was on hold, but it wasn't too bad. It was like a month hold, but I guess that wouldn't really
Yeah.
work for. But
I feel like there's not as many copies of audiobooks as there are of like ebooks too, though.
yeah, true.
Or go to your local like thrift bookstore, like
Yeah.
that, because it's probably there too.
Yes, and that is The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. So just want to make sure you guys had the full,
Yeah. And by the time this comes out, you'll have already seen the Facebook post, but
Yes.
just in case you didn't.
Yes. And again, a little plug for patreon.com/caffeinated crimes if you guys want to hear that episode. But also, even if you guys are not part of Patreon, read the book with us and send us your thoughts. And, maybe we can, I don't know if our technical skills are that good, but, if you can send us like a voice memo of your thoughts and we can like
Mm-hmm.
plug it into our episode and, we'll see what we can do. But
Yeah. Or if you even really want to, we can just throw you into the Zoom. We can do a little
that is
Zoom
true.
interview with people.
That
why
sounds
not?
fun. Yeah, let us know. Again, this will come out on Patreon the last week of November. So between now and then, at some point, we will do that recording. I don't know, but reach out to us if you are interested in that.
We'll make like a Patreon post and see like what people want. Like, do you want to just like send a voice memo? Do you just want to listen to us talk about it? And then we can have a discussion on like Discord or something, whatever the best option is.
Yes, please do. Is that all we had for fun stuff before we get into our sad updates and then our episode?
I think so. Okay. I don't think I have anything more fun.
Okay.
Wait, of course I have a fun update. Happy Halloween. This episode comes out on Halloween.
Oh my God. We're so stupid. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween. This is a Halloween themed episode. It's a haunted house, a haunted building, some people's home. Anyway, it gets complicated. But a haunted
you'll hear soon enough.
You'll know. But I hope you have a really happy Halloween if you're listening on the day of, and I hope you get a lot of candy and watch a scary movie, or like Charlie Brown and the Pumpkin if you aren't into scary movies. And then if you're listening after the fact, I hope you had a happy Halloween and happy November.
As always, please send us your Halloween costumes because we love each and every one of them. Please send us your pictures of your Halloween costumes. And yes, happy Halloween. Like, this is literally a Halloween themed episode, and we just
literally
never know what the hell
I was
we're
just
talking
staring at the title on our Google Doc, and I was like, what do I mean I have nothing else fun to say? I'm an idiot.
We have the funnest of fun things to say.
Okay. Now we can get into sad updates.
Yeah. Now we're done with the fun stuff. So sorry, guys. So on October 22nd at around 6:30 in the morning, Samantha Wall was found stabbed to death outside of her home in Detroit. She was a synagogue leader there, and they do believe that she had like stumbled out of her home after being attacked. So it sounds like she was at a wedding the night before, and that she got home like around 12:30 that morning, so just like 6 hours before she was found. There's no signs of forced entry at her house, but it does appear that she was stabbed and attacked in her house and like was trying to leave. And her body was found outside of her house that morning. Again, she was a local synagogue leader, so just like very devastating for the Jewish community in Detroit. Supposedly, they do not suspect anti-Semitism at this time, but I don't really know why they don't suspect that. This does seem like a very specific, isolated attack. But again, this was just 2 days ago as of the time of this recording. So by the time this comes out, there may even be more information. But again, just super sad and thinking about her and her family and her community at this time.
Yeah, because that's rough.
Yeah.
Speaking of updates that may have more information by the time this episode comes out, like we said last week, we had an update and we're like, probably by the next day this comes out, we'll have an update. And literally that's what happened. So as we mentioned, Joran Vandersloot had part of a plea deal. He would have to confess to murdering Natalee Holloway, as well as saying what he did with her body. So he has officially confessed to murdering her. He said he killed her on the beach and disposed of her in the water. And it's believed he did so after she turned down his sexual advances. That's kind of what I got, is that he was trying to make his move. She turned him down. He got angry. It seems like he did act alone. And his confession was verified by a polygraph test. Obviously, polygraph tests aren't always 100% reliable, but they are still useful in some circumstances. And this can just kind of help. And the family is really satisfied with this revelation. I think it's what we've all thought happened for a long time now, just with the way he acted, him murdering another woman afterwards. So, but we officially have at least the prime suspect confessing to murdering her now in this case.
Did you read, like, do they think there's any hope of finding any part of her body after all this time? I mean, obviously, like in the water, if she didn't turn up immediately, I can't imagine it would be likely, but I didn't know if they said anything.
Not that I read, because I think the whole transcript of like his confessions online, and I didn't read all of that. But it kind of sounds like he took her like out to the ocean to an extent. So I don't know if they think like that's probably not really something that could probably get
I know I hear from like so many people whose family members went missing like years and years ago, where they're presumed to be dead, and they're just like, I just want to like bury them. Like I just want to like actually be able to physically lay them to rest. And that has to be super hard when you know that that's not going to be possible, even after you find out what happened to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just really hard, but at least the family has like something in this, something that they've really, I mean, I think we've all thought it's been him for a really long time. Everything points to him. And so now he's confessing and will likely probably go to jail. So
yeah. Yeah, I'm glad for them to be able to have, I don't want to say closure, because I know like that's such a
little bit of justice, I guess.
Yeah, that's a better way to
a little bit of like confirmation of what they thought. At least him saying it, which again doesn't change. I mean, she would be like 36 this year. You know what I mean? Like she's supposed to be like a full adult with a family if she wanted it, a career if she wanted it, like whatever her dream was.
Exactly.
And he just took all that away. So I guess to just finally hear him like say it, which I feel like is what they've just wanted for so long, like just
which
confess.
is just so wild, because like he's been a suspect for such a long time, and like just basically gotten away with it all this time.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, hopefully this will be a little lighter, because it's really old, so that always seems to make it, you know, a little more removed. A little spooky for your Halloween today. There are 12 sources for this episode, so we're not going to list all of them. We will put them in the show notes so you can click through until your heart's content. But two of the main ones were the Historic Royal Places website and also walks.com. So again, they will be linked in the show notes if you need more information.
Yeah, as someone who was really apparently bad at British history, it made me feel real dumb when you kind of have to, everything you see, have to then look up more about it. You know what I mean? Because like, it'd be like, here's this ghost. It's so-and-so. And I'm like, who's that?
You're like, Google and that person is.
Who's that? Which Henry's that? So many fucking Henrys and Edwards. And who? Do y'all have to remember this like in history class? Like, do y'all have to remember?
Okay, they seem to like know their history and our history and everyone else's history, so I feel like they do. But like, how?
How? There's so many.
Very much appreciate that you put numerals beside the Roman numerals.
Oh, yeah. Because I was like, the last thing we need is to try to be remembering what Roman numerals. And then we get there and we're
like, okay, hold on, okay, here we go.
Like, it's 9:30 p.m. on a weeknight. Like, there's no way we can remember that.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into it. So the Tower of London is an internationally famous monument and one of England's most iconic structures. It's been the setting for many historical events in England, including the execution of 3 queens. So the White Tower was built in 1066 by William the Conqueror. So William had just conquered England and was scared of rebellion, so he built this massive stone fortress in London to defend and proclaim his royal power. It was to be a demonstration of Norman power, and it sits strategically on the River Thames to act as a fortress and gateway to the capital. It did take 20 years to build. So I'm also laughing because Courtney did not give me the 3 and the 1 for these next 2, but I got these. So
I figured those were self-explanatory enough.
So Henry III and Edward I both expanded the fortress by adding large curtain, which are like defensive walls, with a series of smaller towers and enlarging the moats. In 1240, Henry painted the tower's Great Keep white, which is where it got its name, the White Tower, and it was one of the largest and strongest fortresses. So kings and queens would come to the tower in times of trouble to protect themselves and their possessions, especially their valuables. So arms and armors were made, tested, and stored here until the 1800s. While it is called the Tower of London, it's more like a compound. It's kind of shaped like a square with like multiple towers within it. I'm doing a lot of hand motions. I don't know why, because A, this is a podcast, and B, I haven't seen this tower.
I was like, I don't think you've seen it. No, but it's kind of just like misleading, because when you like hear Tower of London, you're just thinking like one tower. But I mean, you know, like the other Henry and Edward did like add different walls and like different towers and moats. So it's more just kind of like this like really big structure versus like just a single tower.
I gotcha. So the tower also controlled the supply of the nation's money. So all coins of the realm were made at the Tower Mint from the reign of Edward I that started in 1272 until the 1800s. So the famous yeoman warders have been here for centuries. So they were originally part of the yeoman of the guard, which was the monarch's personal bodyguard who traveled with him. Henry VIII, who reigned from 1507 to 1547, decreed that some of them would stay and guard the tower permanently. Many medieval kings and queens lived in luxurious apartments in the tower. They worshipped in the Chapel Royal and welcomed foreign rulers at ceremonial occasions. And while it no longer exists, there was once a royal palace to the south of the White Tower. So Henry VIII modernized it in preparation for the coronation of his new bride, Anne Boleyn, in 1533. And we will get more into them later, so don't worry, Anne Boleyn will come back. During the Tudor Age, which is 1485 to 1603, the tower became the most important state prison in the country. So anyone who was brought there was considered a threat to national security. The future Elizabeth I, Lady Jane Grey, Sir Walter Raleigh, who was a famous explorer, and Guy Fawkes were all sent to the tower. Even in the 20th century, German spies were brought here and shot, and the Chapel Royal was also used as a burial place of some of the most famous tower prisoners, including 3 queens of England, Anne Boleyn, Jane Grey, and Catherine Howard, who were all executed in the tower. In 1876, the chapel was restored and the remains were unearthed, including those of Anne Boleyn. They were reburied underneath a marble pavement inscribed with their names and coat of arms. The tower now attracts over 3 million visitors a year. It holds the crown jewels and the yeoman warders, who are like ceremonial guardians. And today, the yeoman warders are also known as beefeaters, and they guard the visitors and carry out ceremonial duties like locking and unlocking the tower of in the ceremony of keys. They wear red state dress uniforms for important occasions at the tower and for special events like the firing of the huge cannon on the wharf known as gun salutes. The ravens are also kept at the Tower of London. So 6 ravens are always kept. The current ones staying there are Jubilee, Harris, Poppy, George, Edgar, and Bronwyn. And it has been said that the kingdom and the Tower of London will fall if the 6 resident ravens ever leave the fortress. So Charles II, who reigned from 1660 to 1685, was believed to be the first to insist that the ravens of the tower be protected after he was warned of the crown falling. And there is a raven master who watches over these ravens.
Yeah, so England's just pretty superstitious, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the monarchy's like, we're not letting these ravens leave ever.
No,
but
these are
they
our
said
ravens.
if you go see it, like you'll see them like on the grounds, like just kind of flying around, like you can see them, but like not to really go up to them, and that they really only respond like to the Raven Master. Like they don't really respond to anybody else.
That's really interesting, though. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So now that we've given you all the fun historical background information, let's get into the ghosts, which is what you're really here for, right? So Guy Fawkes is one of the ghosts rumored to haunt the tower. He was held here after his part in a plot to assassinate James I in Parliament in 1605. So he was imprisoned and tortured, likely with the rack in the White Tower dungeons. Sir Walter Raleigh was an explorer and imprisoned at least 3 times by both Elizabeth I and James I, and he was also credited with introducing potatoes and tobacco to Britain. So it seems that he was imprisoned at least the last time for treason and a plot against James I, and his last imprisonment took place in the Tower of London in the Beauchamp Tower. He was later beheaded outside the Palace of Westminster, and now let's get into the royal ghosts.
And my favorite ghost is coming up. Might I add you? This next one is my favorite because it's fucking insane.
Okay, I'll try to do it justice. So Henry III, who was king in the late 1200s, liked to house a lot of exotic animals at the Tower of London, including a gift of either lions or leopards from the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II in 1235. So pumas, tigers, jackals, an elephant, and a polar bear were to follow. So visitors came from the tower to see the animals, and bear baiting was a popular pastime in the 16th and 17th centuries. So the ghost of a bear has been known to be seen behind the door of the jewel room near the Martin Tower. And other people say they hear the cries of animals, including lions and monkeys. And one guard also said that a bear charged at him, but once he stabbed it with his bayonet, it disappeared. So we got these animals.
There's a
that are
bear
just like,
ghost.
fuck y'all.
There is a bear ghost. Like, what? I've never read
Yeah.
that in any of our haunted ones.
That is,
The ghost of a bear.
yeah, I love it.
But also a polar bear in Britain. Like, I know it's cooler, but like, don't they need to be like in the cold?
Maybe that's
In the
why he's
cold,
haunting the
cold?
place.
I
because
mean,
he's
yeah,
like,
that's true. He's like, are you kidding
no,
me?
this is
I
not
was just
where I
enjoying
belong.
life over here.
So Henry VI was imprisoned in the Wakefield Tower of the Tower of London, and Henry had been born in December of 1421 and actually succeeded his father when he was 9 months old. So he was officially crowned in 1429, and he did have a mental breakdown in 1453, but recovered in 1455. And around this time, a civil war broke out between the Yorkist and Lancastrian factions. It became known as the War of the Roses. And Edward IV was eventually crowned king in 1461, and Henry fled into exile but was eventually found. He was murdered at the altar in the king's private chapel in 1471, close to midnight, and Henry's ghost is believed to haunt the Wakefield Tower, appearing at midnight. So later, the children of his great rival, Edward IV, vanished within its walls. The princes, Edward V and Richard, were born during the War of the Roses. So Edward IV reigned until his death in 1483. Edward's brother, Duke of Gloucester, became Lord Protector of Edward V, who was only 12. So he put Edward and 9-year-old Richard in the Tower of London for their protection. However, the boys were never seen alive again. In 1674, 2 skeletons were unearthed at the tower. The bones were re-examined in 1933 and determined to be those of two boys aged 12 and 10. This is around the same ages as the princes when they went missing, and it seems they were another victim of interfamily conflict during this time. Today, people have claimed to see them in what is known as the Bloody Tower, dressed in their white nightshirts. They have also been seen playing on the battlements, and some people say they can hear children's laughter through the halls. Anne Boleyn was born around 1500. The exact year isn't known. Her father, Sir Thomas Boleyn, was a well-respected courtier, which is like a person who attends the royal court as an advisor or companion to the king or queen. Her mother, Elizabeth Howard, was the daughter of Sir Thomas Howard, 2nd Duke of Norfolk, one of the most powerful men in the country. She spent her childhood at Hever Castle in Kent, and in 1915, Anne was sent to the court of Margaret of Austria and then to the French court, originally as a companion to Henry VIII's sister, Mary. So Mary was married to Louis XII, and after his death, Anne stayed for 7 years in the household of Queen Claude, wife of the new king, Francis I. And this was an opportunity for Anne to learn the skills and manners expected of a lady of the court and to get her royal connections. Anne did sing, dance, play musical instruments, and introduced French fashions at court.
And by 1522, Anne had returned to England, and Anne's married sister, Mary, had become Henry VIII's mistress and remained so until probably like 1525. I mean, obviously, they're not documenting too well his history of mistresses, but around that time. And both Mary and Anne were ladies in waiting to Henry's first wife, Catherine of Aragon. So in 1526, Henry really started being interested in Anne. But at this point, Henry had been married to Catherine for 17 years with only one surviving heir, who's Princess Mary. So Henry was becoming desperate for a son because, you know, they believe they have to have a son to take on family name, patriarchy, blah, blah, blah.
You know.
So Anne did refuse to become a mistress to Henry and held out for the possibility of marriage. Henry then began trying to find ways to end his marriage to Catherine. So divorce wasn't really a common thing back then or really accepted at all by the church. I mean, you guys know the Catholic Church even today, like no birth control, no divorce, a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
So Henry ended up defying the Pope and dismissing Catherine from court in 1531. And then Anne married Henry in January 1533. But actually, Henry and Catherine's marriage wasn't officially annulled until 1533. So a little bit of overlap there, a little murky as far as all this goes. It just gets murkier. So as we mentioned earlier, Anne went to the Tower of London for her coronation in May 1533. So Anne was crowned queen in Westminster Abbey on June 1st, and she was actually 6 months pregnant. This child would be born on September 7th, which was a healthy daughter, Elizabeth I. So the following year, Henry broke with the Roman Catholic Church, setting himself up instead as like the supreme head of what would become the Church of England. So this is kind of where, like, I think he became like technically a Protestant and they kind of split. And this was like a really big deal back then. And he basically just did it because he wanted to get a divorce. That's about it.
These men just doing the absolute most.
I just really want to get rid of my wife. I'm going to become the supreme head of.
Yeah, I'm going to set up a whole new church so I can leave my wife.
And this did create shockwaves, which actually caused religious and political unrest in Britain for the next like 200 years. So a long, ripple effect of all of this.
Yeah.
And Anne did support him through all of this, through, the new church, everything like that. However, after the birth of Elizabeth I, Anne and Henry had no more surviving children. Anne did have miscarriages in 1534 and 1536. And this is kind of where the start of their downfall of their marriage. And in 1536, Anne was accused of adultery and even of plotting against the king's life. So Anne was arrested on May 2nd, 1536, and taken to the Tower of London. Henry ignored Anne's pleas of innocence and had already moved on to have eyes on his next wife, Jane Seymour. So he's just moving quick. So a trial found Anne guilty, but this was mostly made up of her enemies and people who were also accusing her of like adultery and trying to kill the king and all that. So not a fair trial. And she was now a prisoner at the Tower of London, and she was ordered to be executed. Henry did grant her the, quote, small mercy of dying at the hands of a skilled swordsman rather than an executioner's axe.
Wow, that's so kind of you.
So kind. Wow. Well, and what are we getting to later? It probably was kind. But on May 19th, 1536, Anne was beheaded on Tower Green. She did protest her innocence until her death, and Henry married Jane Seymour only 11 days after her execution. The man moves on quick. So Anne's ghost is known to frequent the Tower of London. She is probably arguably the most famous ghost. And a soldier reported seeing a light burning in the closed chapel. And after climbing to a window to look in, the soldier said to have seen a procession of knights and ladies led by a headless Anne Boleyn. If it's a headless Anne Boleyn, I don't know how he knew it was Anne Boleyn.
That's a good point.
Oh, this comes up later too, where it's like a headless so-and-so, and I'm like, how you know it's them? Are they carrying their head? Like, is it floating above them? Is it just...
They just have very recognizable bodies.
I guess so. But she's also known to stalk the site of her execution. And in 1864, Captain J.D. Dundas observed a yeoman attempting to, charge a whitish female figure with his bayonet. The apparition did appear in the courtyard where Anne Boleyn was beheaded. And she's also known to frequent the church near the tower as well. And she's also known to haunt Hever Castle, Windsor Castle, Hampton Court, Rochford Hall, and Blickling Hall. I might have butchered that last one, but sorry. But she's a busy ghost. She's everywhere.
She's doing a lot out there. Wow.
She's everywhere. She's, and Henry VIII's fifth wife, Catherine Howard, was also executed in the Tower of London. However, she's known to haunt Hampton Court Palace instead. So she was killed here. We don't think she haunts here. And in the White Tower, Henry VIII's armor is stored, and some people claim to have a crushing sensation as they walk in, just like a really, really bad feeling. But as soon as they leave the building, the feeling disappears. And guards have also reported being accosted by some unknown force. One guard was covered and strangled by a heavy cloak, but once he freed himself, he saw that he was alone. And another guard stopped to remove his shoes when a voice behind him said, "There's only you and I here." Bitches. How do they keep guards here? Like, the guard's supposed to be leaving.
Right? That's not terrifying at all. It's fine.
Yeah. It's unclear if this is like Henry VIII or just some other unknown spirit being, but this does happen around like his armor that's stored there. So Margaret Pole is another woman said to haunt the Tower of London. She was born on August 14th, 1473, and she was the only surviving daughter of George, Duke of Clarence, and his wife, Isabel Neville. So Margaret got married around 1487. Yes, she was 14, if you're doing the math in your head.
That's even worse than me.
Yeah. You thought you were a child bride.
Right.
This is 14. To Sir Richard Pole. So Richard had quite a few royal jobs and connections, and they ended up having 5 children. And in 1501, Margaret served in Catherine of Aragon's household, and Richard did end up dying in 1504. So Margaret was worried about her financial situation. However, when Henry VIII became king in 1509, it kind of helped her out since she was serving like with Catherine, who was his wife at that time. And she was appointed as an attendant to Queen Catherine and was later restored as Countess of Salisbury. So she held estates in 17 counties, but eventually the crown did like repossess them, which she really wasn't happy about. Like they kind of took away all these estates she had. And Margaret did respond negatively to Henry's decision to annul his marriage to Catherine, and in 1533 refused to surrender Mary's jewels and plate because she did like help out with Princess Mary. And one of her sons, Reginald, was also showing hostility to the king. And another one of her sons was eventually arrested for contacting Reginald, who was considered by the king as a traitor. So her whole family's just, a lot going on.
Yeah.
So Reginald had spoken out against Henry's like royal supremacy, which to King Henry was an act of treason. So Margaret was eventually arrested and held at the Tower of London. And in May 1539, Margaret was sentenced to death for aiding and abetting her sons and having committed other acts of treason. And on May 27th, 1541, Margaret was executed. It seems that she did have an inexperienced executioner who did not do a great job. And he just kind of like hacked at her heads and shoulders. So
I see what you mean earlier. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not great. So she's buried at the chapel of St. Peter de Vincula in the Tower of London. She was beatified by Pope Leo XIII in 1886, which is like one step under sainthood, according to Google. So it's like almost a saint, but not like one step below. Gotcha. And if that's wrong, that was Google. Not me. So Margaret's ghost screams are said to be heard through the Tower of London today. And some even say they see her ghost like reenacting her execution, because it was kind of reported that like he was kind of hacking, she was kind of running away. Like,
wow,
not a great scene.
Yeah, I would not want to watch that.
Nope. So Lady Jane Grey is remembered in British history as having the shortest reign as a monarch. She was the eldest daughter of Henry Grey. Lord have mercy, there's too many Henrys. She was the eldest daughter of Henry Grey, Duke of Suffolk, and great-granddaughter of Henry VII. She was proclaimed queen after the death of her cousin, the Protestant king Edward VI, who was the son of Henry VIII. So a little update on Henry VIII. Like, we know he really wanted a son heir. And last we spoke of him, he was on his 3rd wife after divorcing Catherine and ordering Anne Boleyn to death. He did end up having 6 wives.
Wow.
Yeah. So Jane Seymour did end up having a son who was like his next wife after Anne Boleyn, Edward VI. He also did have an illegitimate child, Henry Fitzroy, who he did later acknowledge, but he was like an illegitimate child, can't really, have that. But Henry VIII did finally get his male heir that he wished for. But Edward actually became king at the age of 9 in January 1537 and died at the age of 15 in July 1553. He'd been sick for a while, but like his exact cause of death is unknown. Like, it's the 1500s. I mean, he could have had a cold that went on too long, or he could have been poisoned for a long time. Who knows what really happened? There was no autopsies back then.
Yeah.
So this is kind of where Lady Jane Grey took over. So she was actually 5th in line to the throne, but was Edward's personal choice since she was also a Protestant. So the next in line was actually his half-sister, Mary, who, again, if you need to remember, because there's a lot of Marys, she's the child of Henry VIII and Catherine. So from Henry VIII's first wife. But she was a devout Catholic. So she had lost approval. Like, Edward wanted to keep England Protestant, and he knew Mary would bring it back to Catholicism. So he's like, I don't want her. I want Jane Grey. So John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland, was protector to Edward and convinced him to crown Jane. Jane also happened to be his daughter-in-law. Little conflict of interest there, but, they made it work. So Lady Jane ascended the throne after Edward's death with her husband, Lord Guilford Dudley. She was just 16, so she's also married young, and now she's a queen at 16. However, the country did not really like this. They started to demand that Mary, the true next in line, be queen. So Lady Jane Grey only lasted 9 days. In 1554, Sir Thomas Wyatt was an English soldier who was involved in a conspiracy against the marriage of Mary, the Mary we were just talking about, who's now queen, to Philip of Spain. So he raised an army of Kentish men and marched on London, but was captured and later beheaded. Lady Jane Grey's father was involved in this rebellion, and due to her incompetent advisors, her and her husband were also in prison. So she kind of just got looped in with this whole rebellion. And they were taken to the Tower of London. They were beheaded on February 12th, 1554, and Guilford was executed first on Tower Hill. Then they said they kind of like took his body like right past her as kind of like you gotta look at your husband who's dead.
Ugh.
And then she was executed next in Tower Green. So in regards to her ghost, Lady Jane is said to haunt the Tower of London. Some people have said they've seen her and her husband on multiple occasions, just kind of looking like lost and sad. Their ghosts are said to be seen around the anniversary of their deaths. And in 1957, a new guard had a run-in with Lady Jane's ghost. The guard saw her headless body pacing around the top of the tower. Again, if she's headless, how do we know it's her? I don't know.
Yeah, that is questionable.
Yes. So more monarchs, but at least we have a new name.
Thank goodness, because I'm getting
no more
confused.
Marys. You're confused, bro. I'm confused. Do you see why there's so many sources? Because so many Henrys, so many Marys, and I knew if I got it wrong, people would be like, that's wrong. And maybe I did get some of this wrong, but I tried really hard. So please be kind when you correct me.
I think you did a great job. But
Thanks. I hope it's making sense.
So
I hope it's at least a little interesting, because by the end of this research, I was like, is this even interesting anymore? I don't know. But it is just like British history, basically.
I find it very interesting, Courtney.
So Lady Arabella Stuart is also known at the Tower of London. So Arabella was born in 1575, and she was great-granddaughter of Henry VIII's sister, Margaret. So Arabella was considered second in line to the throne for a portion of her life after James VI, who's her cousin. So once James became king, he invited Arabella to live in the royal court. He questioned one of her soon-to-be marriages to like a foreign ruler because he was scared like this might threaten his position. I guess because she's next in line, he's going to think she's more powerful and that he might not be king anymore because all these people care about his power. You know how it is. But she eventually fell in love with William Seymour, and against James's orders, the couple secretly married in 1610. So the king imprisoned them both in the Tower of London. They escaped, but Arabella was eventually recaptured and was imprisoned in the Tower. She was said to suffer a mental breakdown and die in 1615. Some also say her death was caused from malnutrition, whether she purposely starved herself or like was purposely starved, or if like she refused to eat is kind of unknown. Like, did she do a hunger strike, or did they just like lock her up and not give her food?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. Her ghost is said to stalk through the queen's house, and some say they see her weeping, which is just sad. So there's also this like, quote, nameless thing that's a spirit that follows the guards on their beat from River Thames Sally Portal entrance. There's also the sounds of a monk's like footsteps. So you can hear the sound of like sandals slapping against the stone floors, which they're believed to be a monk's steps. As we mentioned before, also in the 20th century, German spies were brought here to be killed. And so the Tower of London just has a very long, very sinister history with like a lot of death. So like there's no wonder there's so many reports of ghosts, and just in general, bad vibes. Just bad vibes.
I mean, anytime you have that many beheadings in one location, I feel like something's got to be kind of off there, like spiritually.
That many like royal beheadings, like it's just bad vibes in general. But that is like the Tower of London. It's crazy history of all these like massive things happening there. You can go visit it. Again, it's like one of the, I think, highest visited places in London. If I ever go, I'll probably go.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and that's a lot of British history and a lot of British royalty killings.
I, for one, found this fascinating, Courtney. I know the research was a little
daunting?
Word. I was going to say daunting, but I was like, I don't know if that's exactly what I'm trying to get at. But yes, I know the research was a little daunting, but I think you did a wonderful job with it. And I think you turned it into a good, cohesive story. Because I know sometimes when you're in the midst of it, you're just like, I don't even know where the fuck I'm going.
Again, I was like, is this even interesting anymore? So that's why I tried like with like the royalty stuff, especially since there's so many like Henrys and Marys and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like I tried to just be like, okay, we're going to put this in order, like chronologically. Like, so we're going to get the ghost out of the way, like the other ghost, and then we're going to go chronological. Yeah. But I did find it really interesting. Like I do want to learn more about like British history and stuff like that. But this was a lot of research, I'll tell you that.
As you can tell by the 12 sources in our show notes.
I mean, I felt like an idiot because it's like I would read a sentence and then I'd have to go look it up, and then there'd be other words I'd have to look those up. I'm like, I don't know what these words mean because it just doesn't, it's like a different thing, a different meaning. You know what I mean? Like so much of that, but hopefully you guys found it interesting.
Yes, I really hope so. I sure did. And we also apologize if the pronunciations were not on par because we did our best and we consulted Google, and also sometimes the way that the Google voice says it and the way that my Southern American mouth pronounces it are not the same, but I try my best.
Yeah, and it's just so hard to like, I don't know. And it's so many times too, like we completely forget to look up these pronunciations until like how many minutes Jacqueline had to cut out of us Googling it because we're like, I should have looked that up and I forgot. But know that we tried.
Yes.
It's the American way to not pronounce British things right. Just like we threw your tea in the ocean.
It's our own act of rebellion still all these years later.
All these years later. Actually, I was going to say, can you take us back? But I don't know if it's much better there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll go to Canada, though. That sounds fine.
Canada's also still kind of ruled by England.
That is true. You know,
the Queen is still on their money.
Was it Finland? Finland is supposed to be wonderful. Let's go to Finland.
Yeah. Okay. Norway, Denmark, one of those. Sweden. Did you already say Sweden? No, you said Finland. No. One of those. Yes. We'll go there.
Perfect. That being said, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that this weekend was the wedding reception for one of my friends from high school.
Mhm.
So me and Sam were friends like all through high school, like college, like I mean, there were times where we weren't like as close, but we always like came back together. Like we still see each other, you know, semi-frequently. We always,
Mhm.
every time we're together, say we're going to see each other more and never make the plans, but
Adult friendships, you know.
adult friendships, you know how it is. But it was really fun to celebrate her and her new
Mhm.
husband, Juno. They'd actually gotten married like a few weeks earlier in Vegas, a little private ceremony, and we got to just all come together and celebrate them. And it was just a really fun night and just really fun, like seeing everybody back together. It was kind of like a
Mhm.
mini high school reunion.
It's like a reunion,
And
but only with the people that you liked, so it's even
yeah,
better.
yeah. So, but that was really nice. And it was just super fun to like celebrate them, celebrate their
Mhm.
love. And
Yeah.
it's always just really exciting. She looked absolutely gorgeous. Her dress was just beautiful and very her. So,
Did she do
um,
like an actual wedding dress or did she do like a party dress kind of thing? Like since it was a reception.
kind of like in the middle. Like I'll send you
Yeah.
a picture when we get off
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Kind of in the, it was like short sleeve and like kind of long and kind of like,
Mhm.
so it was like a nicer dress, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like a wedding gown, but it
Yeah,
wasn't
I
like
gotcha.
a casual dress either. So it was kind of like in between, like a more
Mhm.
modern wedding dress where it's like
Yeah,
there's not really a train or anything like that. So
I gotcha.
um but yeah, that is my perk of the week. And if they ever listen to this, congrats, Sam and Juno.
Yes, congratulations. That sounds super fun. Weddings are always such a good time.
Yeah, so fun. And Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
Okay, so my perk of the week, and I really hope that Ashton hasn't already told you about this because I'm so excited and I want you to hear it from me, but not that you really care, but so I gotta give you guys a little context backstory to this perk of the week. So back in like 2019, I bought these Christmas stockings. Okay. Do you know where this is going?
Okay,
No,
kind
don't ruin
of,
it. Okay.
because yeah, I've heard rumblings of the Christmas stockings for a few years. So
Yes. So back in 2019, I bought these two Christmas stockings. And so, okay, second backstory context. So growing up, how many stories can I tell for my perk of the week? So growing up, my mom made our Christmas stockings like cross stitch, I think is I don't do anything sewing related, but I think it was like cross stitch. But basically, so like the J in my name was like a candy cane, and like hers said mom, and like the O in her name was like a wreath. And so she did like those cute
mhm,
little, like, not for like all the letters, but for like two letters out of the name or whatever.
yeah.
And so I told Ashton, who is Courtney's sister, who makes all of our things for everything ever.
Hmm.
Literally, she was here at my house and was like pointing out everything on Millie's wall that she's made. And I'm like, yeah, my child's entire room, it was created by you. Thank you.
Yeah.
so so I told Ashton that I wanted like stockings that kind of like referenced like that, like how our stockings were growing up. So she made Andrew and I stockings where like the J and the A are like candy canes, and then like the rest is like a pretty little script and super cute. Okay. So again, got these in 2019. So of course I get pregnant the next year. And of course these stockings disappear off the face of the earth. Like
Hmm.
do not exist everywhere. Ashton and I have looked everywhere for 4 years for these stockings because I want my children to have matching stockings. And as of yesterday, Ashton found the stockings on Etsy.
Yes.
Oh, and I'm like, Ashton, I'm like, you don't even know that this just made my whole entire day. And she's like, girl, me too. I've never stopped thinking about these stockings.
I remember like we would go Black Friday shopping, or like even I think I remember my mom being like, I think Christmas stuff is out. You need to start looking for those stockings for Jacqueline. Like literally like always looking for these stockings.
Yes, like, and it got to the point where I was like, okay, like I don't think it's gonna happen. Like, let me at least try to find like colors that coordinate. They're like red and green plaid. Like it's not like unless I go
Yeah.
like a plain, like I couldn't find anything, and I didn't want just like a plain, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, so Ashton's like, I found them on Etsy, but they were like customizable. So she's like, let me reach out and see if I can just get the blank ones. And I was like, I don't care how much they are. Like, I will pay. Like, I don't care if she charges $60 a stocking. Like, just give me the blank stocking.
Yeah.
So yes, so the stockings are on the way to Ashton's house, and she's making Millie her own stocking with a little candy cane, and they're all gonna match. And I'm so happy. It's 4 years. 4 years we've been, which
4 years in the making.
I don't know why my dumbass just didn't get more stockings to begin with.
Well, because you don't think it's just like going to disappear. I think something similar happened with like our family. It's like Amelia's is like,
yeah, that's what she said too. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like, what do you mean we can't find this stocking anymore? It wasn't even like, how many variations of stockings can you have? It's not that crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, my heart rate's all up. I'm so excited.
And that's so exciting, especially since it's been like such a long time, like needing it, you know?
Yes. And the fact that like Ash and I have both been like so obsessed with finding these stockings and they just like do not exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now that Halloween is ending, I mean, Merry fucking Christmas. So here we go.
Merry Christmas. Thank God you're finally on this train, because no one's ever been on this train with me. But
it just took getting these stockings to put
Merry
me
Christmas,
in the Christmas
motherfucker.
spirit.
Let's go.
All right, we're decorating this weekend. Come on.
Yes, literally. Gonna take down my ghost and immediately put up my Grinch.
Yes, I love it. Okay. You guys know where to find us on all the places, all the things. Don't forget we're doing our book club this month. So hopefully you guys can read along, listen along, whatever with us, and we will discuss it in our Patreon episode. Again, that's patreon.com/caffeinated crimes. We also coming out this past Thursday.
Yeah,
at the time you guys are hearing this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We had another
Halloween one, the Bell Witch.
Yeah, but that's what it was. I was like, what the fuck did we talk about? That was my episode. Yeah, so we talk all about the Bell Witch. So if you want another fun little haunting ghost bonus, that is over on Patreon with all of our other bonuses. And again, our Discord, if you want to chat with us about the book, if you want to chat with us about all the things, tell us about your Christmas stockings. I'll send you pictures of my Christmas stocking. You guys know it's good.
Yeah. And if you wouldn't mind to give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can leave a star or a rating or subscribe or like, anything like that, where you can just send us some love. It's always greatly appreciated. We love hearing from you guys. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.